What's up, Knights Nation? I'm the Beige saying here with another exciting episode of Friday Nights Live. Today's episode, we have three special guests joining us. First, the founder of the Knights itself, James OConnor. Next, we have the creative director of the Knights, Imani Lanier. And then we have the creator of our NFT that we will be dropping real soon, Stephen Holding. Join us in saying hello to them. So the first question we want to ask today, this one's going to you, James. Tell us about the NFT drop that we're going to be doing.
Well, we wanted to share the story of the Knights and who we are in a cool way. So we decided to partner with Data Labs on an NFT drop, and they've been supportive. So we really liked, we were looking at a couple of different partners, and we liked what they had because they were a green NFT option. So they use 0.01% of the energy that it takes to create NFTs, similar to other blockchains. So their blockchain is also purposely built for video game, media, and entertainment. So when we were figuring out who we would partner with, we felt comfortable that that would be a good place to build on. And we thought they were a good fit for what we do at the Knights.
Okay, because I know that's like one of the problems with NFTs, just like global warming and all that. So like I feel like that will put people at ease because we're thinking green while also dropping our NFT.
Well, we just want to make sure we're on a good space, and it came recommended by some people we trust. So we like them, and we want to build. We have a lot of things we're going to be building, and so we feel comfortable to get started here.
Okay. So the next question, we're going to go to Stephen. What's the name of this collection that we're dropping?
So this collection is called the Knight Commander. And basically, it's kind of a physical representation of what that kind of knight/esports warrior looks like.
This next one is going to be for Amani. Why did we go with calling it the Knight Commander?
I mean, that kind of goes into kind of the history as well as why, James decided to call the organization the Knights and all of his inspiration behind it. And so when we, started working on this NFT, we also saw an opportunity to create an iconic image that kind of represented the Knights outside of the logo that we've already created and what have you. And as we started to create that, we looked at it and kind of decided that, hey, we've got something here, and this is something that really, really represents the brand. And so from that point of view, we wanted this character this NFT that we've created, that Stephen created, to kind of be the alpha knight. And so I did a little bit of research to figure out what the alpha knight was called back in the medieval days and what have you. And Knight Commander was what it was. So
okay, I really like that name. It's a real badass name, Knights Commander.
Yeah.
And like you said, it's like it goes into the history of being a knight, so it's like it's even more in depth. So I really like that.
Exactly.
All right, so this is a question for all three of you. Where did this design come from?
So I'll start in the beginning, and I think it can go to where the logo came from. So when Imani and I started talking, we wanted to update the logo and how it really rolls into the NFT. The first thing I said is that I wanted to take the brand forward. And so I asked Amani for help he said, well, what inspires you? And I said, well, I think we're going to go into kind of a further, like a metaverse world. We're going to be competing. And I said, I went through a couple iconography pieces and I showed him Tron. And that was music. Their soundtrack is really inspired. It's always transported me in anything I do. When I'm focusing, I usually put on their soundtrack and just kind of zone in, tune out the world. And so it's me kind of going into a space where I research. I put a lot of time into developing what we do. So and that was important. And so he took the Tron shield for the Knights logo and put it into essentially around the shape. Amani, I know we're talking about the Knights logo for a second. It's a little outside of this, but I think it'll speak to the deeper meaning. Can you talk about how I always found it interesting when you told me about the Knights logo and the shape of how you were seeing shapes almost inside themselves. Can you speak to that?
I mean, yeah. So, basically at that time, what I really wanted to do is I wanted to create a single logo that encompassed all the different things that spoke to who the Knights were, right? And so being able to take the icon or the logo that was already living and that the Knights were known for, which was a lion, but then also talk about the fact that the brand is called the Knights. So, essentially the challenge was to bring together the fact that the brand organization is called the Knights, and then we had a lion. But as you know, in the past, like a lot of different knights and what have you, they have an insignia, whether it be a dragon or a lion or what have you, that represented that kingdom or that different area. So I thought it would be a great option to bring in a shield and bring that knight's head onto the shield. So that was like the insignia of that that land or what have you, right? So we brought those two together, but at the same time bringing in inspiration from the fact that the Knights are from Pittsburgh. So, Steel City. So obviously we wanted to make it look and feel very like rugged and steel-esque and beat up because, it's the steel workers, the iron workers. It's a blue collar city from inception. So we wanted to bring all of those things together. And again, with the inspiration that James was giving me from Tron and other different movies like Stargate, looking at video games like Halo and what have you, and just kind of like all of those different things that James was inspired by, that he put in front of me, where the organization is from, the fact that literally the brand is called the Knights. We took all of that and made a logo that encompassed all of those things.
So one of the things that around the lion head, you'll see it looks shield-ish. It was from Stargate. I remember you basically took how, if the characters in Stargate, you took the metal pieces that for a lion, it's protecting your neck,
right.
But in there, it's armor. And I thought that was cool.
And I would just like, I'm sorry, Roger. I just wanted to add that, creating this knight icon or actually creating a avatar type character that represented the Knights is something that James has been asking for about a year now. And I know that it's been tried a couple of times with a few different artists and what have you. And I just want to say that, with this new NFT, the direction that Steven's taking it and what have you, is right in line with, what the request was a year ago from James. So we were actually really excited, with what Steven's done. And it hit a few different check marks, at the same time. Yeah.
So, kind of started by looking at the Knights brand book, and it's really, really strong iconography and logos, and the whole deck looks really strong. And it was about taking that, really the lion logo, translating that into what like an actual suit of armor could look like based around that kind of aesthetic that you guys already had going. For like I thought it was a really cool, there were two really cool counterpoints there. One was like the Henry II armor. That's a very kind of ornate classical armor with like the lions kind of embedded into the design of the armor. So that was one of the two starting points. And the other one was kind of a more technological approach because, obviously, given the nature of, the theme and the subject matter, it should look really like tech and updated. Tron definitely was a big part in that. Also, I don't know if you guys have had the opportunity to see Dune yet, but the costume designs are pretty awesome. And I thought they also had kind of like, I don't want to say vintage, but like a traditional armor look, but updated with technology. So I thought that was a really just natural kind of combination to lean towards.
I was gonna say, I really liked how you, like, looking at the picture of it, like the fangs coming onto the visor, and then looking at your examples, like it does remind me of that Batman, like futuristic Batman armor, because it has the bat ears, but you combined it with the lion logo, and I really liked how you did it. And then where you have the lion's face on the shoulder, it's like that extra added detail. Like what's your mind, like, process in doing all that?
Well, I kind of looked at the whole project really as a way to kind of bring those branding assets you guys have in your deck to life and make them look practical, and really not only getting across the fact that this is a really futuristic looking knight, but it's also literally kind of the branding is baked into the actual design. So that's where the lion head on the shoulder comes from, for example, or the teeth kind of hanging over the visor, and the lion head kind of like providing the framework for the helmet. So it was cool. I mean, there are so many cool design lines going on in that logo already. They're kind of like dynamic cuts, and kind of it looks very mechanical and futuristic. So that logo was a great place to start. Had a lot of kind of interesting points that could be taken out of it and reinterpreted.
It honestly gives me like I don't know if you've probably seen Power Rangers, but it gives me like it'd be that special Power Ranger that like you have the normal team, but then you have the extreme Power Ranger that like it's the stronger one, and like that's the vibes it kind of gives me, because I really like the visor and like the lion's face around the head. Like I really like the detail and all that.
It kind of has like a Voltron vibe to it as well.
You're right.
Yeah.
Voltron. Yep.
Yes.
But can you guys share what was the thought process like of coming with the unique or rare elements of these NFTs?
Do you want to take? I know you've done a lot of work on that, Imani.
I mean, I've got some things. I mean, I would love, like, for the initial side to hear Steven's where he pulled the inspiration from, and there's definitely some rarities that we took from Pittsburgh. So, and I don't want to give too much away because, it hasn't dropped yet. And, we still want people to get excited about it. But we definitely pulled, some iconography from pop culture, from Pittsburgh pop culture, like the two of those together. Definitely, as Steven said earlier, from the brand book. And the iconography that, we have started to build over the past, year and a half, 2 years, to represent what a knight is. So, we took a lot of that, and then, just the inspiration that we've been talking about throughout this call, really built all the different elements that are going to go into all the NFTs. But again, like I said, I don't want to give too much away because I think people are going to be really excited about what they're going to see when they finally get to see it.
When we get to drop it.
Yeah.
All right. Yes, Steven, I would like to hear your opinion on it, because I was like, before the show, I also like went to your Instagram. It's like you have a very futuristic look to your art style, and I assumed like it was easy to blend that into these NFTs because it goes with your vision, I assume.
Does, yeah. I remember when we started the project talking to Amani and Scott about it, just basically saying that it's almost like this project was kind of tailor-made to my skill set and interest set. I was, definitely jumped at the opportunity. Been a lifelong fan of, cyberpunk, anime, which is kind of interesting to see all those, both of those two kind of aesthetics really kind of taking over both in gaming and just culture in general.
I was gonna say, I could see the Akira, like, it's like, do you get inspiration from Akira? Because I can, like, when I looked at, like, it has kind of that same flow, like the neon look and all that type of stuff.
Absolutely. The neon, attention to detail in Akira is pretty amazing, considering it came out in the early 80s, which is just insane. I think the whole process took 5 or 6 years to complete the film. Nothing had been attempted like that in animation ever. And that kind of really, I saw that probably when I was about 10 years old, like an old VHS copy that one of my buddies had. And it kind of really just changed my whole perspective from that point on, just kind of set a standard of what that level of detail and fluidity looks like, but also creating something that is kind of timeless, like Akira still looks ahead of its time today. And it was, how many, like 30, 40 years ago now?
Yeah, I was gonna say the animation for it stands up with today's anime. Like a lot of older anime, people like, I can't watch it. It's the animation, but it's like Akira is like one of those mainstay ones that to this day is very popular and people like to use it as a reference.
They say that Kanye gets a lot of his inspiration from Akira. Yeah, like a lot of his music videos and exactly.
I was gonna say, I'm pretty sure Stronger is like almost a carbon copy scene from Akira. Like there's parts that's just like, it's just like that. So again, Steven, tell us about your background as an artist. Like I feel like people would want to know about that.
Yeah.
I'm excited to hear this. Go ahead.
So basically like a lot of kids, I started drawing at a really early age, but I really stuck with it. I was really fortunate to have an excellent art teacher in high school, which I feel like really changed the trajectory of my whole career in a positive way. He was elected teacher of the year for something like 4 years in a row in Massachusetts, where he taught. We still stay in contact, but he was really a pivotal kind of figure in my creative development. Really helped me get my portfolio organized when it came time to apply to art school, which I went to Massachusetts College of Art and Design in Boston for, from 98 to 02. I was a painting major. I mean, that kind of grew out of like a practice of graffiti and illustration, and painting seemed to be this way I could kind of combine all these kind of points of interest into one medium. And so, yeah, graduated a painting major from Mass Art and moved to New York. And instead of, I mean, it may have been to my kind of detriment, at least at first, was to just kind of do a lot of different things: design, illustration, painting, which is kind of like you don't see a lot of people take that path, because a lot of people that have success in any one of those categories tend to just put all their energy toward design or towards illustration, and just that's where everything goes, and they don't really do anything else, which is good. I mean, that definitely has its benefits too, but trying to do all these different things, kind of it's a much more time intensive process. And it's taken a lot longer to kind of fuse all those things together. And that's something I still do every day, is kind of figure out, all these kind of raw elements I have in this equation: illustration, design, painting, etc. What are the right proportions? What are the demands of this ask? Really, what will they benefit more from? Like, and then kind of create almost like a chemical equation to say, okay, it's going to be, maybe texture from this painting in one. Drawing tends to be the foundation for everything, so that kind of stays stable. But design aesthetics, illustration styles, it's all just kind of a balancing act, and it's unique for every project.
Okay, I like that. So this question's for Amani and James. What was like the deciding factor of choosing Stephen for this project? I mean, I feel like I already get it. His style fits the style of the Knights, but I would like to hear your thoughts on this.
Well, I'll just say I reached out to some friends in LA, and I asked them to find me a cool person that understood branding and art, because it was one of my I compete. That's what I do. And so
competitive.
Yes. So Amani is competitive in a different way. So Amani, I trust him, and he helped us find Stephen. So do you want to talk about it, Amani?
Yeah. So Stephen and I used to work together at Nike. We both lived in Hong Kong for some time. We crossed over. I was there a little bit earlier than Stephen, and he came in kind of in the middle of my time there. I left, and he was still there. But yeah, we worked for Nike Asia Pacific, working on Nike sportswear, NSW. And it's really funny because I really didn't see the extent of Stephen's talent until after Nike. Because obviously, we became friends, and I follow him on, LinkedIn and Instagram and what have you. And, with Nike, the work that we were doing for Nike is very commercial, I guess is what I would say. And so, I don't think that Stephen was able to really, showcase, let himself loose and showcase, his true talents at Nike. But, when I was back here in the US and I was looking at Stephen's work, I was blown away. Like, I was just like, whoa, like, where did this come from? And so, we haven't been in contact over the years, but I've definitely been following him over the years. And, keeping up to date with his work and what he's doing and what have you, via social. And so when this project came up, I immediately thought, like, who's going to fit, with what we're doing. We have some connection to professional sports, like Pittsburgh Steelers and the Pirates and what have you. Also thinking about the fact that we're in gaming, thinking of the Tron thing, and the first thing that came to mind was Steven. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. So Michael, this question's for Amani also. Like, can you give us an insight on your background for people? Again, Amani is our creative director.
Yeah.
It's like,
yeah.
He's made some pretty awesome
Amani.
stuff. I've seen some of his projects, and Hey, I like it.
Thanks. Thank you. Thanks. Wow. I mean, it's a 30-year story. You got 30 years?
I got time. I just want to hear the story.
Give them the highlights. You know the points.
Yeah.
Just tell them the key points.
I mean, the highlights are similar to Steven. I actually grew up, my grandmother was an art teacher. So she was like my biggest influence. She put blocks of clay in front of me. She put, big giant pads of drawing paper in front of me and told me to just make something, it was the clay and paper and
so it's in your blood to be creative.
It's in my blood. We would go on family trips and she would put she'd buy me an Instamatic camera and, I'd get excited and come back and develop the film and what have you. So it's always been in my blood. In high school, I was taking art classes and photography classes, went on to, go to art school and decided at some point that I didn't want to continue with art school and I wanted to go into the workforce because I kind of changed my ideas about what I wanted to do. And it was actually merchandise. So I wanted to take, my graphic design skills and my photography skills and like put them on t-shirts and, stuff like that. So knowing nothing about the industry, about the clothing industry, I thought getting a job would, and learn before I try and do my own thing. But I always wanted to do my own thing. And this was just like me getting the experience. And so here in Los Angeles at 19 years old, I started working for a clothing company and learned a lot from that first company. And then just, on the track to like, growing who I am as a professional and going from being like an assistant designer, assistant production to actually being a designer for a company. So at that point, it's like the early beginnings of streetwear. And, started working for a company called Fresh Jive. I worked for a company called Extra Large. Early on, I was actually the first cut and sew designer and developer for Supreme. So, everyone knows that brand. And so that was pretty early. That was the beginning of Supreme, which I would say was like 20 or more years ago. And then from that point, went on to work for some like major brands. There was a company here in Los Angeles called Jeff Hamilton that did leather jackets for celebrities and licensing for like Disney and all the different sports brands, basketball, NFL, NHL, MLB, everything. So I was working with them for a while, but I was never really happy because streetwear was always really the thing that I wanted to do. And actually at that time, it wasn't even called streetwear. It was just like you either skate, surf, or like urban or whatever. And so, trying to do my own thing and going on off to different companies and learning more and more as I went along. Tried to start my own brands a couple of times, successful for a couple of years. Ended up designing the first premium denim line for Levi's. Moved to San Francisco, worked for a company called Blue Marlin. Came back to LA, got picked up by Nike, went to Hong Kong working for Nike, came back, after 4.5 years.
A lot of traveling.
Went to New York. I was Puff Daddy's design director for Sean John. Didn't really like New York, to be honest with you. I'm a West Coast kid. I mean, I love New York. I go there for 3 weeks and have a blast. But it's a very expensive city. I feel like you need to be a millionaire if you're going to enjoy life in New York, which I'm not. So came back, worked for a brand called 2K, which was kind of like the first collaboration brand. They collaborated with a bunch of different artists, like very well-known artists that are in, the Museum of Modern Art and Yoko Ono and Basquiat and what have you. So I was design directing for them for a while, until they saw the end of days. And then kind of like over time, and I guess we'll get to the end of this. I don't want to be too long-winded, but over time, going from a product designer and making my way up after leaving Nike into like real creative director roles. at that time, I had to start focusing on not just designing product, but actually marketing of product, content of product, business development, managing a team, all of those different things. And so it went from being a designer, I'm a designer, I'm a creative, to actually becoming, senior management, and leading the creative, for these different brands. So, most recently I was the creative director for Casamigos Tequila. I left there to go to a cannabis company, which is called Steezy, which is pretty big here on the West Coast. I was vice president of creative for them. And then when COVID hit, James found me.
This question is going to be for Amani and Steven. Like, what is your process whenever you're creating art? You know what I mean? It's like, I would like to hear that, because, like, again, like looking at both your art that you have made, like Students of Futuristic work, I like, and what I really like about Amani, it's like it has like dark tones to it. Like some of the photos on your Instagram.
Before they answer that, and I think we can wind up on this, I just want to say, I stayed close to when Imani was going through his process, because it's the farthest thing from me that I understand. And the thing that I truly appreciate that anybody that wants to make anything is a significant amount of research that Imani does. And also, I think the fundamental shift for me in trying to grow, because if we're going to grow a brand, we need to understand a lot about it. And one of the things that he did was he started expressing through images to me. So I'd watched a lot of our company always try to express specific art and concepts only in speech, where Imani doesn't speak like that. He speaks in images and art.
I feel like in art, like you can't really express it as much with your words, unlike with
you can certainly try when you're uneducated, and then you sound like a caveman banging on a wall.
You're right. You're right, because it's like, again, like,
I know,
that's me.
As I'm trying to, it's got to look like the thing with the that one movie a long time ago, and it's just like he's just like, you mean this? Yeah, that. Yes, like a little different. Yeah. So just that is just as somebody who snuck out of art school instead of paying attention to it and trying to go to gym class. It wasn't, but is expressive. I really struggled to understand it, and Amani was a big help to that. So Amani, and then both of you can talk about your process. I'm interested to hear you as well, Stephen, because I've pried and asked Amani 1,000 different questions about that, because I am fascinated. So I'd like to hear both of you say your process a little bit.
Yeah, I mean, for me, it's again, like you said, starting with researching, but I think for me, it's really about first understanding the brand. So James, like with Nights, you really helped me to understand the brand and what it is that you were looking for and how you felt about the brand that you founded, right? Yeah. So for me, it's first getting a very, very clear understanding of what it is we're trying to accomplish, right? And so, from that, you can start to put together a story in your head and visualize how you'd like to tell the story of the brand, or whatever the project is that you're working on, like this NFT project. So once you start developing those ideas based on, who the brand is, who we're targeting, who is it that we're trying to reach here? And you start thinking about those things, and you can start to pull imagery and research and figure out. You're not only researching, imagery to design something, but you're also researching the customer, the end consumer. Who is that person? What are the things that they gravitate towards? What is the music that they listen to? What places do they travel to? How did they grow up? How much income do they make? You start thinking about all those things, because all of that's going to determine what you create, because there's no sense in creating something that these people aren't going to be able to buy or relate to, because they can't afford it, or because they don't come from that world. So there's so many different things that you have to think about. And even with the Nights, gaming is new to me. So there's a lot of learning for me as far as, understanding, the intricacies of this consumer or this type of person that likes the game. It's a different, it's a lifestyle in itself, and so there's a story that needs to be told, and these people need to be able to relate to it. And again, that takes research, but it also takes speaking to James and spending hours on the phone and talking about what his vision is and what have you. So that's
Thank you.
Yeah.
And Stephen, you know, when you were asked to, I think you just expressed how the NFT project, what was that like, and how did you go through that?
So the first thing, to Amani's point, is just really getting a kind of core understanding of the brand, both visually and kind of you know, the anecdotes and the kind of phrasing that backs it up, and it all kind of comes together into this very unique kind of brand experience. So understanding that is really kind of before, you know, pencil touches the paper. Definitely studying the style guide and kind of breaking down these elements, start getting a thought process going as to how I could kind of bridge the gap between my own style and, you know, and the Knights brand. After that's achieved, I know a lot of that came from working pretty closely with Amani as well, and kind of running things by him, and whether it's concepts or visuals, and seeing if it's on the right track. From there, it's drawing. I found really just kind of is the foundation for pretty much, I mean, for everything I do, design included. It's rare that I'll sit down to even, you know, create a basic graphic design without kind of getting my graph paper out and sketching out a basic grid to see how things kind of line up. So yeah, then from there, it's just basically applying my drawing skills to, you know, the DNA of the brand. As time goes on and as the process evolves, that you know, the illustration comes into it, and then, you know, elements like texture and kind of like all these kind of visual devices you use to build an image come into play. But really, I find that with these projects, it's, you know, it's key to keep it very simple, especially in the beginning. So it's just really the relationship between my drawing style, the brand style guide, and then those two things kind of feed into the what becomes the finished design.
Okay. I was gonna say, for both the Amani and Stephen again, it's like, so is there a place you have to go to inside your head, like emotion? Like for me, like when I look at art, sometimes like I can feel like whatever I'm looking at, there's emotion to it. Like I feel it. Like where some people, it's like their art's like it comes off very sad, or it's very aggressive, or it's like positive. And it's like that with a lot of things. But like, what is your emotional state whenever you're creating?
You want to speak
Well,
to?
Sure. I mean, so there are two really distinct processes that I use. You know, one is for my own work that I do in the studio that, you know, it definitely informs what I do for clients, but it's kind of separate from that whole thing. And then there's just the professional work I do for clients. The professional work I do is very kind of more regimented thought process. It's definitely like being somewhere quiet, being able to focus, kind of keeping as few elements in front of me as possible, in order to kind of start simple and in order to build towards something more complex. For my studio practice, that's where kind of emotion and mind state kind of comes into more. A lot of, you know, sometimes I have a plan when I step in the studio. It's other times I just kind of you know, put a blank piece of paper in front of me or a blank canvas and just kind of go, which is kind of, you know, it's a time consuming process, which is why it's not really too suitable for clientele work. But it really does kind of inform how to create a feeling, how to create a mood, whether it's color or, you know, kind of soft edge versus hard edge, or tone, light or dark. And a lot of the times I won't set out to kind of create that mood. I'll let the mood I'm in at the time kind of inform what I do. And that way, to me, I've kind of learned that it kind of creates something that's genuine, because it is literally letting that kind of emotion play itself out. It doesn't always make a successful image, but it's always a learning. Be like, okay, you know, if I'm feeling really happy or optimistic, how does that translate into visual? And then how do I kind of like amp up those things that are successful about that mood to kind of capture that given mood for you know, for a clientele driven project.
Yeah. From my side of things, I look at it, all of it, from more of an emotional standpoint. And I'd say the reason being is because, you know, most of my career has been in consumer products, and so it's been very important for me to be able to get into the skin of the person that I'm trying to make products for. And so my process really is getting into that headspace. And it's funny because I'm able to do that. Like, I think it's one of my gifts. Like, literally, if you said we want to make suits, like, I can put myself in that headspace. If you say we want to make outerwear, I can put myself in that headspace. If you say we want to make streetwear, so I'm able to like morph, you know, mentally myself into the shoes of whatever consumer it is I'm looking at. You know, even if it's like women's wear, you know. Like,
That makes me think of like, so you're like creative method acting.
yes, exactly. That's a great way of putting it. I mean, when we were at Nike, Simon Collins, which was one of the creative directors that we had when we were there, you know, I sat down one day to do a review with him, and that was the thing that he pointed out. He said, "You are," because we had different categories at Nike, so we had categories that kind of spoke to, specific to sportswear, specific to, like authentic, like 60s and 70s, sportswear, and we had streetwear, and we had classics, which was like an Abercrombie type thing. We had urban, and I was in charge of like 4 of these, different brands, and so I had to turn the switch on and off, depending on which brand I was working on at the time. And so one of the things that he said to me was like, you're really good at being able to, put 100% into each category that we're working on, even if they're completely opposite. He's like, that's a talent that a lot of people don't have. Like, they're passionate about like tennis, or they're passionate about running, and that's what they work on. But for me, I was able to put myself in the headspace of each consumer type, because it's an emotional thing. So I'm like able to kind of like just drift off into, okay, if I was this person, like, how would I feel? How would I want to wear? How would I want to dress? What kind of things would I do? And I think that's just like the little kid imagination in me, basically. Yeah.
See, I always do. I liked you for a reason. It's like,
exactly.
I really like that mindset.
And that's the other thing that I think that, all the keywords that we've thrown out in this conversation, but at the end of the day, it's about storytelling, right? And we're telling stories, so that the people who engage with our brand not only understand the brand, but they can take part in the brand and be a part of the brand, right? So we're telling, it's like reading a book, and you get so engulfed. It's like the never ending story, like he's reading this book, and he was in it, he was living it, and so that's what we want people to do, from a brand perspective. And the things that we're creating, we want them to be able to experience them and live in this world that we're creating.
I like that.
Yeah.
So I'm gonna have a final question for all 3 of you. What was your favorite element of this NFT, like the NFT artwork and like the whole process of it? Like, what's your favorite thing that went into it?
I'll go. I really liked seeing on the NFT the logo in neon green on the chest.
Mm-hmm.
I just really liked seeing it expressed in such a brilliant way. It just really shone through, and I liked the neon colors, so I just thought that was cool. It stuck out to me.
Let's see, my favorite part. I guess it really gave me a cool opportunity to kind of combine all these things that are always floating around in my head that may not always be right for every project. Like I was saying, like comic and anime influence, and cyberpunk, and even electronic music, Tron. Like these things are just always kind of like filtering through my brain in one way or another. And this was just like the kind of perfect opportunity to put them together in a way that kind of felt new and fresh. And also, it's the first NFT that I've ever done, and it's kind of a new medium that I've kind of really been interested in, but didn't really have too broad of an understanding of until now.
You had fun. You had to do a lot of work on it, right?
You're still working on it.
I had just like all these random, like how things change on it and stuff, and it's just like 1,000 different little ways that you can change it. So yeah, you guys are going to NFT school, right?
Yeah, exactly.
Crash course.
Exactly.
but I definitely have a much better understanding, and it was a lot of fun actually.
Nice. And you, Amani, what was your favorite thing about it?
My favorite part was number one, working with Steven on this project. It was a good experience, and I think an even better. What made it an even better experience is that what he actually came up with was better than what I had imagined, but I would say it's 80% of what I had imagined. So like he hit it on the nail, like of what I just had in my head, like when we were discussing, and briefing him on, what we wanted to do. So 80% he hit it on the nail, and then the other 20% he exceeded what we had thought and brought elements and different things that we didn't think about. So that for me was the best part of it.
Nice.
Yeah.
I was going to say, so we're at the tail end of the show. Do you have any final words to Knights Nation that you guys would like to say?
I'll just say, as we're trying to venture into the NFT space, there's a lot of questions on utility and like what it means to purchase it or participate with the Knights. And I'll just say, my only thought is, I think at first we take that really seriously because I know there's a lot of BS in the space. So we're early, but I know our team is putting a lot of work into trying to making it meaningful. So be patient, and hopefully we can do a good job. And and I think over time, I think people will be happy with what we do long term.
Yeah, my thoughts on that is just to kind of to coattail off James. He said meaningful, which really stood out to me right now. And when he said that, I'll just really quickly, since the launch of NFTs in general as an industry or as a way of buying artwork or buying anything online, I wasn't a fan. I wasn't convinced. I'm like, I'm used to buying a painting and being able to put it on my wall. And so what I have realized through this process, James said meaningful, and the team has put a lot of work into making this happen. Steven has put a lot of work into creating something amazing to share with everybody. And there's going to be versions of it that are super rare and that everyone's not going to get an opportunity to get, and the amount of work on a daily basis that we've put into, not only just the artwork, but making sure that all the back end is done properly, and that there's different options and there's different partnerships and ways of looking at this thing. There's been a lot of work, which now I see the value. I see why it's valuable, because there's been a lot considered and put into making this happen and getting this artwork done, and it's just as much work as it is something tangible that you can hold in your hand. There's a lot that's gone into it, so my respect for NFTs has definitely shot up, because it's not just some BS like JPEG. It's literally a lot has gone into it.
And then finally, Steven.
Yeah, I mean, it's been such a great experience. Just wanted to thank Amani for bringing me into the team. It was really kind of knowing Amani and knowing where he's coming from and his abilities, and seeing how he works within the team over at the Knights. It was just really encouraging to see Amani doing so well and at the head of like a really capable team. I feel like when you have these two NFTs with so many different options that can be shuffled around, I feel like without the proper kind of leadership, things could go awry really quickly, and that never happened. So that was like, and then all that energy goes right into the into the creative, into the design. It ultimately makes for a better design. So definitely thanks to Amani for bringing me on. I'd like to say too that it, like I was saying, it's been a learning experience, and now I kind of find myself asking if I was to do another NFT specifically for the Knights, what that would look like, how to leverage time better, how to account for, maybe things that could have gone a little bit quicker. But now having an understanding of how these elements all kind of combine to form an NFT, I really hope to get to work with you guys again, because the next one will be even better.
Yeah, and this is all of our first one. So we're all learning on this one. Yeah.
And from what I've seen, it's a great job. It's like, no, for real. It's like I really like all of them. And and if I can afford all of them, I'll try and get all of them.
And speaking of which, I'd like to give a shout out to Scott, Angelica, Julie, Matt, the whole team that's working to make this happen, because everyone's putting a lot of work into it. So shout outs to the team.
I was gonna say, and this is for James. Do you have any words of inspiration and encouragement to our teams for the season starting up? PUBG Mobile just started up. Valorant's going to be coming up soon. Rocket League starting to rear up as well.
Yeah, I think I'm just excited for all of them. They pour their heart and soul into what they do. It's meaningful, including the back office staff. It's all one big team to me. I played on football at Marine Corps. I played on high-level Counter-Strike teams, and I'm most proud of the team that we have today. So, and that includes all the players.
Three of you were amazing. And
thanks guys. I appreciate it.
Thanks you, Roger.
Well, that was a very exciting episode we had for all of you, Knights Nation. But who will be our guest next week? What will we talk about? Will I beat them in a game? Find out next time on Friday Nights Live. Peace out.